Hey everyone, today we're talking about the 5 things that you need to know when buying a home in Maryland, and let's get started right now. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where we talk about all things living in Maryland. So if that's the kind of information you're looking for, you may just be in the right place where we do just that. Today we are going to be talking about the 5 things that you need to know when buying a home here in Maryland, if that's something you're considering. So we're going to jump right into it. If you ever have any real estate questions, feel free to reach out anytime. I love answering your questions about all things buying, renting, living in Maryland. So feel free to reach out anytime. And if you like the content that we're putting out here, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified of our new weekly videos. First thing you need to know when buying a home here in Maryland is we are what's called an at the table state. So when you are at the table signing all your closing documents, that means that all money is collected and that transfer of ownership is happening right then and there. So when you walk out from signing your closing documents, you have keys in hand, the home is now yours. So it's a little different, like, several years ago when I was in California, you would sign your documents, then it would be 24, 48 hours for the lender to review, and then once the lender funds, then you go for recording, and that can take a day or two. So it's just a little different, but it's something that I felt was worth mentioning so you know exactly how that goes down here. In Maryland, we are also a title state, so you're not going to really be dealing with an attorney on the day-to-day when you're buying a home. There is an attorney involved in signing off on legal documents, title and deeds and all that sort of thing, but they're not involved per se in the process. Also, we're not an escrow state, so I know in certain states you have maybe an escrow company as well as a title company, and there's just a few more parties involved. Here you're looking at simply just a title company that's going to be handling everything as far as collecting all funds, dispersing the file, and making sure that you have proper title insurance and lender insurance for the transaction. And real quick, I know I've covered this in other videos, but just to give you some ballpark figures as far as what it would look like cost-wise to purchase a home. So it always still surprises me. I talk to a lot of buyers that still ask, so I got to put 20% down. And it's just not the case anymore, although a lot of people still think that that's a minimum requirement. So FHA requires 3.5% down. So not that much. If you're looking to buy and you can come up with $25,000, you'll be able to buy a home. On a $400,000 purchase price, 3.5% is going to be $14,000 for your down payment, and if you do 5%, that's going to increase to $20,000. Now, FHA requires a 3.5%. Conventional used to require 20%, I believe, way back in the day, but now they have as little as 3% down for first-time home buyers, and then as well as 5, 10, 15% down options. So there's a ton of different availability and options for financing out there with less than 20% down. So conventional is going to require stronger credit. So that's in general, that's going to be a more strict requirement for conventional, but FHA, as long as you have over a 620 FICO, you're going to be able to qualify for that loan. So part 1 of buying a home would be your down payment. The second part, as far as cost, would be what's called closing costs. So closing costs are going to be, I generalize them as all additional costs and fees in order to purchase a home. So sometimes lenders will make it a little more confusing than it has to be, where they separate closing costs and then like prepaids and things like that. It should just be all combined. So anything in addition to your down payment is what's going to be known as closing costs. If you're purchasing a home under $200,000, we typically use percentages just to kind of help keep it easier. So below $200,000, you're looking at 4.5% to 5% of the purchase price will give you a good estimate of what your closing costs are going to be. If you are buying from $250,000 to $500,000, 3.5% on the lower side, 250 side, to 3% on the higher side of 500 is going to give you a really good ballpark of your closing costs. If you are 600,000 and above, that number can vary just depending on what price point you're at. But you know, 15,000 bucks is probably going to cover that, assuming that you are what's known as impounding with the lender. And what that means is that the lender is paying your property taxes and insurance for you. So in order for them to do that, they have to collect money from you at closing to start that escrow account, so there's not a shortage in 6 months, in a year, and they can continue to make those payments for you. Closing costs, real quick, made up of lender fees, starting up your escrow account, title policies to protect you against any defects title related after closing. Transfer taxes here in Maryland is what we call them. Anytime there's a change of ownership, transfer taxes are brought in. If you are a first-time Maryland home buyer, it's going to be 1% of your purchase price. If you're not, if you have purchased a home or sold a home here in Maryland, it's going to be 1.25% of the purchase price. That 0.25% is basically a first-time home buyer waiver. So it's Maryland saying thank you for buying a home. Any subsequent purchase, sale, you're going to be paying the full 1.25% of transfer taxes. And then a survey is going to tell you where the property lines run, typically around 300 bucks for a survey. And we just want to make sure that there's no sheds, fences, anything like that running through the property. Make sure all that looks good before you take ownership. Number two thing to know when buying a home here in Maryland is just the different areas and the differences that may come with that. So for example, if you're looking in Baltimore City and then expanding out into Baltimore County, there is still something that's called ground rent that's still around. It's being faded out just because the state or the city stepped in and said you've got to allow buyers to redeem this and to buy it out. Ground rent is where you own only the structure and not the actual dirt, right? So ground rent is still around, and if you see that, that means that you're buying the home for just the structure. Although they always allow you to buy that out, it's kind of a complicated equation on how it comes to, but typically around $2,000 to $2,500 will buy that ground rent out and get it to fee simple, where you own the dirt as well as the structure. So that's something that you want to pay attention to if you're in the city or Baltimore County. Also, different cities, locations like Columbia, Frederick, Tacoma Park, even Westminster, a little north in Carroll County, have basically a city tax. They call it something different in each of those locations. But that's something in addition and on top of your normal property taxes. So that's something you just want to pay attention to depending on the specific location of Maryland that you're looking at. Also, each county within Maryland has their own calculation for local income taxes. So in Maryland, you're going to pay a state level property tax, usually 5.75%, and then each county adds on an additional income tax based on where you live, and that can range from 2% on up to a little over 3% on top of your normal state income tax. So that's something you want to pay attention to as well, depending on the county you're looking in. Just Google the county, Maryland local income tax, and it should pull that up exactly for you, so you know kind of what you're looking at there. Number three thing to know when buying a home here in Maryland is just doing your homework on the market, on the location. I know that probably goes without saying, but it is something that just didn't want to ignore. So in Maryland, prices can vary drastically depending on the location. So price points in Baltimore are going to range huge from prices in Montgomery County, which is surrounding DC. So you're gonna see huge price gaps there. So I hate to generalize like an average price point, because it can be very misleading depending on where you're looking at, but that's something I recommend looking into. If you're seriously considering purchasing, boots on the ground is always something that I feel is in the buyer's best interest, just to get an idea for the areas, the neighborhoods, and see if that fits kind of what you're looking for in your home community. As far as what's going on currently here in Maryland, so the market's hot just like everywhere across the country right now, outside of a couple cities, but most of America right now is booming in regards to housing. So 2019 to 2020, Maryland saw 15.5% appreciation in property value. So definitely growing. Normally here in Maryland, you're going to see around 4, maybe 5% annual appreciation. So definitely exponentially higher than normal. I don't like to predict the market. It's impossible to do. There's just so many different variables with interest rates and all these different things as far as, you know, what the government's going to do, how involved they're going to be. What I will say is that talking to certain people in different areas of the country in the last housing crisis, Phoenix, parts of Southern California, Florida saw as much as 50% price cuts as far as, you know, values dropping. In Maryland, talking to realtors that were living through that and working through that, Maryland really took a less of a hit. It was more really around 30% or so, 25 to 30%. So nowhere is recession proof, but I will say that Maryland, with its ties to DC, all the government work, all the contracting work, it doesn't tend to take as big of a hit. When things are down, it's usually not going as far down as maybe other parts of the country that don't really have as much of that foundation there. Number 4 thing to know when buying a home here in Maryland is doing research on the specific location you're looking in. So a lot of the calls that I get, you know, tend to be from people coming out of the state. So they're just a little, you know, more uneducated on specifics here in Maryland. So greatschools.org is something that I highly recommend, because that is definitely a huge concern for a lot of people coming from out of the area. Schools can vary greatly here in Maryland. So overall, we are top 5 throughout the country in schools. The schools are pretty good, but they tend to be, you know, specific to certain areas. So I would, you know, recommend, you know, looking into that. Howard County, Montgomery County are going to be among some of the best as far as counties with funding and just programs that they have, and their school ratings known, you know, among the state as well as nationally. So doing research there is something that I highly recommend. Number 5 thing to know when moving here to Maryland is you will fit in with the locals just fine. So as a transplant myself here to Maryland from Southern California, I can speak to this pretty well, I think. In Maryland, I feel like they've got a perfect balance of people that grew up here and have stayed here forever, as well as new people kind of always consistently flowing into the state and into the area here. You'll see a lot of people, especially in the counties outside of, you know, Baltimore. You'll meet a lot of people that grew up here and are still here, and then you're also going to see a ton of people just with the government work and the technology that's been here and still coming into the area. You're meeting people that are coming from all over the world, all over America, and it feels like a perfect mix. So I think that you'll like that if you are coming from out of the area, and it's something that you'll enjoy. Maryland does have a ton of state pride. You'll see that when you get here. People are constantly repping state apparel and things of that nature. So that's something that we take pride living here in Maryland. All right, everyone, those are the 5 things that you need to know when purchasing a home here in Maryland. If you have any questions or concerns, comments, feel free to comment below or reach out to me directly anytime, and we'll see you at the next video.